Hello, all you ghouls and goblins of the world, and welcome back to our second half of our Spooktober wonderful episode of Killer Cuts. And this one here, known as the Killer Collective, because it's Killer Cuts, and we got two movies with the title Killer. We're talking about Killer Book Club and Totally Killer here today. But before we get to that, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Bobby Munson, and right beside me, beside me, but below me is the natural Astrid Pizarro. Astrid, how are you doing? Happy October. Happy
Yes.
Halloween's coming up very soon. You gotta love this month. Horror movie fans love October.
Yes, that's one thing I was looking forward to because even though I don't celebrate Halloween, I'm always looking forward to other horror movies that come out. And when I saw these two getting suggested, I was like, I'm all on board. And even though one of them was more predictable than the other one, it was still very fun to watch. I enjoy them both.
Certainly, one was definitely more predictable than the other one, although both had some predictabilities about them. We'll get into both of that and talk more in depth. But the first one we are talking about is, you see that cool little clown face guy over in the corner of the screen there, guy, gal. We don't know because it's a mask. We don't know who's underneath there. Either way, we would find that out before the end of Killer Book Club, which is the latest release released recently on the Netflix platform. It is a Netflix original. It is English dubbed foreign film. So anybody out there who struggles with that, okay, I get it. But I don't know. I've been watching movies that for years and years, especially horror films, whether it be they're English dubbed or I'm just reading subtitles. I've never personally had an issue with it. So as soon as I saw this, I'm like, yay, horror movie. I'm on this. And I know you watched it, I think, just slightly before I got around to it and had recommended it. I'm like, perfect. This was in my queue. I got to watch it right away. Glad I did. Unlike most of the critics I see out there, some of you critics being nasty towards this one, but we'll talk about that. But Killer Book Club, get us into this one, Astrid.
This one, it just I saw the title and I was very intrigued by it, and then seeing, as you said, our killer here, our little friend over here. I don't know what to call him. I don't know if he has a name to it, but anyway, um, I like that. I was thinking about it, and then when I started watching it, I like that it was from Spain too, because I at least I could gather some other stuff because our Spanish is not the same, but it's similar, of course. Um, but I found so many similarities between like past movies, so I feel like in a way like an homage to those movies that I had seen before, especially my favorite, Scream. Um, but there was so many things to it. Going from like the scenes, for example. I remember like the scene in the library when they're having sex. I feel like it felt kind of like Scream One in that in the bedroom with Billy and Sydney there too. So that felt very similar to it. And even the killer reveal to me, it felt a lot like Richie and Amber. I keep forgetting her name all the time. Like that reveal, it felt like kind of like that team in there for me. So it felt very similar in that aspect. And even the ending, like we have that scene of you thinking it reminded me of Charlie in Scream 4 where he's sitting in the chair, and then we have Hayden Panettiere who's just like freaking out about wanting to like help him out, but she says into it, and when it does happen, obviously she gets stabbed in that scene. So I felt very similar to that, so I can see the parallels between both of the movies. And the aspect of having the telephone and the technology, I love having that addition there, because with Scream we only get the calls and that's about it, and some text messages. But the fact that the killer not only uses their phone and the technology in this way, but to be able to like write about it and release it like a book, and the people are tuning in to read it when it gets released, I thought that was super interesting. And just a part of the timing of it too is another thing that really caught my attention. The fact that the killer will release it and then they're going back in time to try to figure out where the person is and what happened to them too. So like that kind of mystery, and like the pointing fingers is another thing that's very familiar to all of us too. So I felt it was very interesting to watch. And I like that it's a different kind of mask. I don't think I've ever seen a killer with that type of mask before in the movies I've seen, at least in the past. So I like that too. And also felt like kind of like I what I did last summer was another combination of it that
Mm-hmm.
I could pinpoint from it. But overall, even though I could see some scenes that are similar to other movies I had seen, it just it felt so nice to watch a movie that was kind of different in a way with the inclusion of the students. And the fact that it was in a school kind of reminded me of Cry Wolf a little bit too. That was another one that can make me think of it in that aspect of being in that. I don't want to say it was a college, but I guess it was a college in that sense. But there was so many things that I could pinpoint from like different movies. And I told my brother, "This is like this scene. I bet you this happens." And then it happened. I was like, "Well, yeah, sure. I guess that's how it goes." but still it was very, even like knowing and thinking ahead of what was going to happen, I was still very interested. And like trying to guess who it was with my brother. I think that's another thing that like kept me like guessing. I was thinking it has to be this person, like it has to be. And my brother and I going back and forth on it too. But overall, I still enjoyed it. I still have fun watching it, and it's not something that I will watch again because I feel like now that I've seen it, now that I've seen the parallels, I rather watch Scream than watch this again. But still, at the same time, it was very entertaining.
You can't beat the price. It's already there if you already have Netflix, so it's worth a watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, a lot of homages to those 90s type horror films, especially, and a lot of people are going to draw the immediate attention to I Know What You Did Last Summer. Scream, yes, for the who done it aspect, but I Know What You Did Last Summer for the story aspect, because this starts off as a bit of a prank. We're talking about originally a teacher trying to force himself on a young college student, doesn't work out to his favor, so her group of friends are going to play a prank on said teacher. They dress up as that clown that we're seeing right there. They all wield hammers. They try to scare him. Unfortunately, he gets a little too scared, runs, falls over a barrier at the college, and gets basically impaled by a thing that Don Quixote is holding on a statue. So dies. The school writes it off as being a suicide or an accidental death, while the knowledge of the truth lies within the core group. And then the core group, being a bunch of fans of horror literature, start getting the book that is playing out to them, almost like when in Scream 3 they're getting the script to the Stab movie as it's happening physically. So you see all these homages to that obviously the writer, if not the director, if I think they're the same person actually, in this case, was paying homage to films that they grew up loving and watching. And that I appreciated. I think it was done with enough care and enough interest to allow me to watch this. Would I have been blown away had I gone and paid $20 to see it in a theater? Maybe not so much, but I still really had fun with Killer Book Club, and I'll give it a thumbs up and say if you're a horror movie fan, especially of slasher films, and you want to watch something that pays homage to what you love, let's not kid ourselves. That's what Scream is too. It's an homage to Halloween and Psycho and all those movies. So here you go. Here's a new one. It's on Netflix today. Check it out. Anything else you want to add to Killer Book Club?
Yeah, overall, just like I will come in with an open mind of like, obviously, if you think ahead of time of like basing the most you might kind of spoil yourself. But other than that, I enjoyed every part of this and the way everything was used. And like you said, the book part, and the part that really, it's something that caught me off guard was the part of the storytelling when like, with the main character, I'm trying to remember her name, Angela, I think, if I'm not mistaken. She reveals later that the story of her friend and everything, what happened with her friend and how it was connected to the guy later on too. I was like, it seems very familiar, but at the same time, it was nice to watch it. I feel like in a modern version too, when you think about it that way. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. It just, like you said, it's not something that I would have gone out to like pay a movie ticket for. I would have waited until it hit any kind of streaming service to watch it. So when I saw this being suggested, because I've seen so many horror movies on Netflix, and it was good timing.
It really was. I had fun with it. Again, if someone's looking for something new to watch this Halloween season, Killer Book Club on the recommendation list. Go watch it now. Now, that's not the only killer movie you can check out. In fact, if you own Amazon Prime, you can join us in watching Totally Killer, which is the other movie we just watched over this past weekend. I know that you had watched that, I believe, on Sunday or Saturday, and I had watched it immediately the day afterwards. So I knew that we had to do this episode, get these two in there. And I will say, before we even start going more in depth with it, I like Totally Killer a whole lot more than I like the Killer Book Club. And this is, I believe, the writer-director of Totally Killer. I looked at her history, and she's more been a producer on TV shows and a kind of a showrunner for television. So this might have been the first major film that she got behind. And I say, if that's the case, then keep it up, because this was a great start. Now, is this movie A+, like this is going to start a new franchise? Maybe it could. I mean, the way this is left, it could easily start a new franchise. I draw parallels in this one to Happy Death Day to You, and I say the second one
Yes.
because this is where this one goes all batshit crazy, and
Yeah.
it's great because this is listed as a horror comedy, and so it should be, because if you try to take it too seriously, you're going to really dislike this movie. But I loved the whole twist towards this one. While it seemed obvious who the killer should or would be, I did not ever think for a second that that's who the other killer would be, in a totally messed up sort of Back to the Future Happy Death Day to You sort of way. And they reference this. So to set it all up, totally killer, the main character, her mother, is killed by a killer known as the Sweet 16 killer that had killed people. I can't remember. It's over 30 years ago or something like that. It was been 30 years or so. 35 years. There we go. So this killer has not returned since that series of killings where 3 girls were knocked off, and one of those girls' friends was this particular woman who gets stabbed 35 years later, played by Julie Bowman, I believe her name is, from Modern Family. So that happens, and then her daughter, who wants to set this all right, has a friend who's been working on a time machine based on plans that her mother gave her, that her mother started working on back in 1987. They managed to, in an attack by the Sweet 16 killer, find a way to actually make the machine work, and our hero is sent back to 1987, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So go back to 1987, and this is where the comedy really works in this, is bringing someone 2023 young gal into 1987 with no recollection of what it was like in the 80s, and she's goes into the school and wants to find out information about what class a certain person is in, and I'll fill out this form and this. What are you talking about? She's in this. Like, they just, like, it's so, there's no security in the 1980s. And she even makes the reference at one point, I wonder if it's even difficult to get on a plane back in this time. And I chuckled. I like, in a sinister sort of way, I shouldn't really be chuckling at that situation. But of course, in the 1980s, it wasn't as quite tight on security protocols or anything like that. So it would be very easy for someone to obtain information that they need. So the idea here that she goes back and she wants to stop the Sweet 16 killer from these particular murders, but everything that they essentially do in the past changes everything in the future. And the way it's explained is that, imagine that the timeline is just a flowing river, and it's all going downstream, and you hop out of said river and you walk back to the shoreline and hop back in. Everything continues to flow, only you've hopped back here and started from the back. So again, like they said, even if her mother was to live, it doesn't mean that she's necessarily goes back to being her daughter or anything like it. Everything could completely change. She wouldn't necessarily be erased if things changed, but she might not be the daughter of who her parents are. So it really kind of messes with things quite a lot and plays into the twist ending as well too, when we find out that the first killer is this one guy we don't really expect. He's kind of a friend that shows up out of nowhere. I mean, I guess you could predict based on the fact that he's the nerdy guy that, you know, shows up and didn't really have any other reason for being a part of the major storyline or anything like that, other than end up being the killer who happens to be exacting revenge for, I believe, was it his sister or somebody, or no, his girlfriend, sorry, that had gotten a drunken car accident due to her being made fun of by this group of girls that call themselves the Mollies because they're fans of Molly Ringwald. Turns out he was the original killer, and then we find a secondary killer is the one in the future that's passed into the back into the past. Ends up being the guy who runs a podcast talking about the killings originally, and his whole motive was he wanted to start them again because he was running out of material for his show. So we have 2 killers, 2 different motives, all brought back into 1987. And when things unfold and change and go to the future, we find out that, yes, everything has changed. There's a lot of learning to do, a lot of adapting to do. And that's where I say this is very well adapted and open to a very interesting sequel. I really, really liked this movie. I honestly, the more I think about it, the more I liked it. And I know it was, I think it got mixed reviews on this one. I'm on the side of really enjoyed it. I think this one was fun. I think the killer's mask's a little bit goofy. Wouldn't have necessarily been my favorite choice. I think that was the one thing, but it is a horror comedy, so I understand it. But at the same time, this was good. And I saw somebody was saying online that now that we've seen Julie Bowen play in a horror film like this, wouldn't it be cool if she came back to play Stu Macher's sister in Scream 7?
Yeah, Scream 7.
Everything all comes back to Scream 7.
Yeah,
So,
always.
What did you think of this movie?
I think one thing that once I started, well, obviously, as we had the main character coming in and going from 2023 to 1987, I like when she gets introduced to other people, but in that time, like seeing her mom and the friends that got killed and her dad. So I like seeing it because she looks at it, she goes, "Dad," and like you can see her like reflecting back to what her dad looks like, that like at that moment in front of her to what he looks like now in 2023. And let me tell you, the casting is really well done because a lot of them look so much alike. It's scary at this point because they're not even family. So to like think about like the casting because they look so much alike, like Olivia Holt looking like the mom, and just like just incredible. I never thought like that would be the mom, and then when you see her, like, oh, I see it now, like the way that they did the hair and the way that they there's like so many details, not only of their features and what they look like, but like their clothing, like the mom, like the hair and everything. You could tell it's the mom based on how you see it there too. So I really like that part of it. This reminded me a lot. I know you probably haven't seen it, but Pretty Little Liars did a little spin-off on what we call HBO Max here, or Max at this point. Pretty Liars Original Sin. You don't have to really watch the original Pretty Liars to understand this, but it reminded me a lot of this of like having that killer come in here, kind of getting revenge, for the people that did them wrong. And obviously the kid is the one that ends up paying for it if you think about it from that aspect. So it reminded me a lot of that aspect. And it kind of reminded me of like Carrie a little bit with the high school aspect and bullying and things like that. So that's what made me think of it too. But again, I like the storyline between this one. The fact that like the way she does references, like one of my favorite parts is when she goes to the school. She's like, "I need to find the schedule for this person," and then she's like, "Yeah, she's in this room and in this class," and she's like, "Oh, I thought it would be much harder than that." It's like I forgot we're in the 80s, and like so many situations that she gets to, she's like, "Oh, when she goes to the ride to like use the ride at the end as as an energy to get back to 2023," and she goes, "Can you leave? We actually have to do some kind of inspection." He's like, "Oh, you tell me to leave. I'm gone." And then she's like, "Oh, I forgot we're in the 80s and this is that easy." Like there's no question to it. And it just shows how different the times are compared to now. They're like if I were to go in a school and be like, "Can you give me Bobby Munson's schedule?" And they'll be like, "Can you give me an idea and tell me whose relation to him is?" All this stuff. And then she was just able to get it so quickly. So I think that was super interesting, like her comparing it. But yeah, I like the part of the time machine, and even her friend, the one that invented the time machine, and her mom looking so similar. And I love that part with like her friend's mom giving her the notebook and telling her what happened later on, in that aspect of like she remembered what happened when she helped her, and be able to give her that notebook there. But yeah, I love the back and forth that we have here as well, of her like thinking back of like she's in 1987, but thinking and reflecting back on what life is now, because she also thinks that like she's been friends with her mom and her mom hates her mom, and then she starts thinking about her relationship with her mom who she's with at that moment, and then she's like, "You're so lame for like telling me you love your mom, like nobody wants to hear that." And just like that, that back and forth they have with each other was always so fun. And I love the aspect of like her knowing from the based on the podcast in itself. Oh, she thinks it was like, "Oh, the killer killed so and so in this part, so I gotta prevent it from happening," and then it ended up being backwards and affecting somebody else. And I did like that there was no issue like timeline wise. If you think about it, it was just like she still got killed, it was just somewhere else. But I enjoy the storyline here more than anything. It made me laugh, and like you said, it just made me think of Happy Death Day too, with it like that back and forth, and the killer with the mask. But this is one of those that I had fun watching it, and I definitely want to watch it again. I ended up watching it just thinking I'm just not gonna have high expectations for it, but it exceeded them in a positive way, because I like the horror comedy combination that we get here, and it was definitely so fun. So if you haven't checked it out, please do so, because this was one of the fun ones. Yeah, like I said, the casting is definitely another thing that made me like think about it, because we also have Liana, who was in Scream 6 too. So I think, and then having that there too, I was like, I like how she went from the killer to being the bully in here. But Yeah, it just
Kind
made
of the
me like
same thing in a
excited.
way.
Yeah. And I also have the other one that I really missed, Charlie, who plays the dad in the 1987 version of the timeline, because he's the one from Julie and the Phantom. So I'm really like really sad it got canceled to see him in here. I was like, oh yes, I get to see him again. But yeah, I feel like it was really well done. It's such a fun story, and like I said, just from the casting to like the acting and like thinking of like the ridiculous lines they have with each other, and like the compare 1987 to 2023, it was just so fun. So I really enjoyed it. I hope they do some kind of sequel to it, because I liked it. And I was like you, I kept looking at the ratings, and I said it was, I look at it now, it's like 6.7 out of 10. I was like, "Ugh, do I really want to watch this?" But I still went with an open mind, and I enjoyed myself.
Yeah, and I did too. And like a lot of that comedy landed for me. Like I had some good laugh out loud moments. Like not just talking about the ease of 1987, but just some of the comments about like the knowledge she has from 2023 about these specific
Yeah.
people. Like when she goes to the one gal that would eventually become the sheriff in 2023, it says like you're gonna grow up to have like the most ungodly mushroom cut haircut that's gonna do nothing for your exact type of head or something like that. And they just kind of look at her like that was oddly specific. And I had good chuckles at just some of that absolute nonsense. Or when she tries to explain to people, like, have you seen the movie Back to the Future? And it's like, oh, I haven't got around to it yet. All this guy's because it's still fairly new at this point in
Yeah.
time in this time frame. Or the cops who don't want to believe anything she says because again, there are a couple of guys, oh, go away. There's not going to be a murder.
Yes,
Never
like the
is.
DNA
Don't just
part.
go away, little girl, kind of thing, and shrugging her off like it's no big deal. And so,
Yeah, I
um,
love the DNA part. You reminded me of that one too, when she goes to the
yeah,
DNA and she's like with the plastic bag and everything. It's like, here you go, I gave you the killer. They're like, what are you doing? It's like, here, I hit them and there's the blood so I can help you find them. It's like, it's called DNA. They're like, what does that mean? She's like, I don't know what that means. It just, this is DNA. Here you go. So just like, it's just fun to think about it, because when you don't think about what DNA stands for, we automatically go like, we have it and here you go. But I just thinking of like, she didn't realize that the testing was not part of it at that time. So when they look at her like she's crazy because she just gave him a little, like, I guess it was like a piece of paper or whatever it was with just the blood on it. It was just so funny.
oh, it was fantastic. It was well thought out in that sense, and I like the twist ending. So everything changes when she goes back. It's set right. Her mom and dad are together, but now she has a brother, an older brother. Now all of a sudden they live in a nicer household, and everything's just a slight bit different than what it was before. But then she gets a booklet from her friend's mother, who would have been assisting
Mhm.
her in 1987, to kind of catch her up on things. And you start to see during the credits, if you follow along, some of the comments that are made within the book, and even mentioning about the guy who would be the
Mhm.
second killer, and how in this timeline he is
Yeah.
alive but believed to be at some sort of a monastery and stuff. But she says she's keeping a close eye on him, and I'm like, bingo, there is your walk into your sequel
Mhm.
right there. Because if he was capable of it before, he's capable of it in this timeline as well
Yeah.
too. Therefore, we could start this whole process once again next Halloween when Amazon Prime gives us Totally Killer 2. I'm really hoping anyway,
Yeah.
because this one was a very, very big surprise for me in a great way. I love it. I'm glad we got to talk about both because I liked both, but I really loved Killer Book
Yeah.
Club. This is one where had I paid to see it in theaters, I would have walked out going, wow, I'm very surprised that I'm walking away positively with what I spent here today, because I would have paid to watch this movie.
Yeah. I love them
Anything else,
both too.
Pat?
I feel like it was for different reasons, but in a good way too. So I think they were fun in different ways. But it's like it's the first time I see a movie like foreign in that aspect as a horror movie. But at the same time, I was able to like gather it up because they're talking in Spanish, so it was easier for me in that aspect too. But in Totally Killer, just it was new, but it wasn't new at the same time. So I like the concept that we have here. Like you said, there's opportunities for a sequel. So I feel like if people keep watching it and we get recommending it, more people are watching it, they'll probably get some kind of sequel to it. And I did like that ending, like you said, the part of like the updates on the characters because they look like the yearbook too, which is another thing to it because of the school aspect that's added to it. So overall, I enjoyed both, but I definitely Totally Killer is the one I'm gonna watch again.
For sure. High recommendation from us both, clearly. So people go check out Totally Killer, but also check out Killer Book Club and all the other wonderful, great horror films that you can check out nowadays. Now, anything else you want to add, or is it time to let the people know where they can find us?
Yeah, that's about it.
That's about it. Okay. In the meantime and in between time, Astrid, let the good people know where they can find you, what you got coming up.
Yep, you can find me on my Twitter and Blue Sky is Astrid Pizarro, and then Instagram and Threads, Astrid Pizarro 20. Everything else you can find my YouTube channel, which is like my name, Astrid Pizarro, as it is right there. But other than that, you can find me there on a weekly basis doing Taking Over with Ed as we discuss NXT, and maybe every other Friday or Ladies Wrestling Showcase on my YouTube channel as well.
Which, big news, that is a very popular show there over on Good Pod. Some great news that you've had recently, and hopefully that star continues to rise for the both of you. So definitely everybody go check out and support. There's where you're going to find me down below. That is where you can catch me on the socials, as well as on my own personal Twitch, where you can see me do some terrible gaming, but by having fun in doing so. I also known for doing wrestling commentary with my partner in crime, Papa Smokes, every Saturday on Prairie Pro Wrestling. You find me on Thursday nights with Papa Smokes for Video Bros, where we do Ring Respect Radio, talking all things MLW, independent wrestling, Prairie Pro Wrestling, all that sorts of jazz, and just generally being a couple of jackass guys on a Thursday night. You can also catch me on Busting Out on Sundays, and of course, Got the Pod Life, Beats and Beatdowns, and other various shows periodically right here at our local establishment. And that ticker down below is going to find you our local establishment, whether it be on Twitch, on YouTube, and all the other socials that the kids are following nowadays. You can find our local establishment there, and we've got things to fill your time on all aspects, whether it be Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, all those wonderful things. Great content there from a lot of great creators. Check it out, like, follow, subscribe, all those wonderful, wonderful things that you guys do to support us here that we appreciate. We appreciate you checking out another edition of Killer Cuts, this wonderful Chapter 7. And we will be back very soon with a lot more Killer Cuts for you. From myself and Astrid, take care.